Hello, parents, educators, and nerdy D&D fans. You have found our new home for Area of Effect, a talk show where we discuss how tabletop role-playing games benefit the whole family. We're currently in process of shifting all our old but golden episodes over to this new channel by posting a new episode every weekday until we catch back up to our new episodes. We would love your help getting this new channel up and running with a follow, share, or review. And thanks for joining us on our quest to bring more adventurers to the table.
Hi there, I'm Hugh from Poderation. If you like today's show, why not check out Dungeons and Dragonfruits, the bizarre, strange, and queer in every sense of the word D&D podcast. Join 5 friends as they laugh, learn, and adventure their way through the weird, wonderful world of Widdershins, where dragons hatch from trees and have adventures of all forms in every shape and size. Available wherever you can get your podcasts.
So for me, for our family, I knew that my daughter was ready to start playing D&D when she got very curious about mom and dad playing. We always played after bedtime, of course, because that's the only time adults really can get anything done when there's littles around. And she would sneak out of her bedroom at night when she's supposed to be in there resting, and she'd come stand in the hallway and watch our game. And, it's just like with anything else. If kids see mom and dad doing it, they want to try doing it too. And of course, there's all the little minis and the dice and the fun things. And she was just convinced that she needed to play D&D too. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Allison.
And I'm Ryan. And welcome to Area of Effect, a podcast by the Kids Table where we discuss how tabletop RPGs benefit kids and answer your questions about playing TTRPGs with the kids at your table.
Well, we are so excited today to welcome a new guest, Nicole, who is the mom of 2 littles and also the founder of Game Master Moms. Nicole, welcome today.
Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you. I'm excited to talk with you guys.
Would you like to start just by introducing yourself and sharing what Game Master Moms is all about?
Yeah, like you said, I'm Nicole, and I am pretty new to this tabletop role-playing game world, but my main focus is playing with kids, and particularly young kids between the ages of 3 and 6. Really, I started Game Master Moms as a extension off of my Instagram account, Dungeon Master Moms, where really I'm just trying to share tips, share resources to inspire other parents to bring their kids to the table and play with their younger kiddos and older kiddos. Because I think it's such a good opportunity for families to bond and for kids to kind of accidentally learn really important skills through play.
I've been loving your series on Instagram lately, What I Don't Do as a DM with Kids or something like that.
Yes.
It's really interesting to think of all the kind of unnecessarily complicated elements of full D&D or TTRPGs that we can really get it down to the basics when we play with little kids.
I find them more fun that way. It keeps things going, keeps the pacing a little bit more quick. And I always say, we play by the rule of cool over everything else. If it's fun, we make it happen. If it's getting tedious, we just take that part out, do something else.
That's awesome. I love it. So we do have some community questions today. And the first one here is the most common, hands down question that we get in some form or another. What would you look for to see if your kid is ready to start playing TTRPGs?
I think the main thing to look for is are they interested? Are they curious? I don't know. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that if they are curious enough about it and have the desire to play, that they're ready. Even if they can't do math yet, even if they can't read yet, I think there's ways that you can, as long as you're going to play with them as the adults, there's ways you can get around pretty much any skill that maybe developmentally they haven't hit yet and still play with them. I would say if you're not sure if they're interested, maybe you could start with just some verbal storytelling and maybe give them some choices, sort of like a choose your own adventure verbal story, and see what they do with it. Do they totally freeze? Are they interested? With some prodding, can they come up with some imaginative ideas about what they might like to do? And that kind of piece of playing with at least one other adult, I find it super helpful because the adult or maybe even the older kid, if you have an older sibling that's like a teen, they can model some of those like role playing decision making pieces. And then a younger child will usually latch onto and start copying that behavior, and they'll kind of learn to do some of the more imaginative, more like role-playing based pieces of D&D as they go.
That's definitely something that we saw happen a lot in the kids table with Alice as the older teen, like kind of helping the two younger players around the table. That happened a lot.
And I think that's a really key point too, because there is a big difference in when you're playing a TTRPG between the dungeon master or the game master and being a player, right? Like there are similar functions, but there is a different way that you behave around the game. I've noticed that with my my two younger boys, because it's usually just the three of us when we do something like that. And my slightly older son, he's 8, will try and mimic what I'm doing rather than try to play the game, which sometimes reinforces his need to boss his younger brother around, shall we say. So having another adult with you, or having a more experienced older kid with you, that's a pretty genius thing, Nicole, because then there's that additional modeling that's happening that the younger kid can latch onto, because we know that that's one of the ways that kids learn, right? They learn through watching others. They learn through that demonstrated behavior, and then they learn through that repetition. And so having somebody else aside from the adult DM in that circle is really genius, and goes to one of the things that we always like to talk about, that kids need multiple adults in their lives, multiple adults in their clouds around them, helping them become the people that they're meant to be.
Yeah, I'm such a believer in that too, like that kind of like tribal community that kids need to really develop into their own self and be confident and feel attached to a lot of other good people in their life. That's so important. And I mean, I think that the D&D space is this great space where like you can come together at a table with like an adult, a parent, an older sibling or an older friend, a really young kid, maybe even 3 or 4, and maybe a grandparent or an aunt. Like you could just mix all ages and they could all play the game together.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because there's so many things in our society that are stratified by age, um, sometimes because of developmental levels and appropriateness for different ages. But there's so few spaces where intergenerational work really can come together, because in my previous life, I often found that intergenerational was a stealth phrase for the adult thing that the kids had to be quiet for, right? Like, any sort of meeting that was happening, or any sort of, thing that was going on in the organization, like intergenerational was not really a kid thing. It was an adult thing. And then we found like entry points for kids. But I hear what you're saying, and I love the idea of the D&D space as a sort of level playing field, right? Like, especially if you've got a DM who really understands what's going on around the table and can sort of attend to the different needs. But it really is a space where once you're a player no matter your background, no matter your developmental level, no matter your age. Like there really is this sort of level playing field there. And I really enjoy that, because there's so few spaces like that anymore.
Nicole, I'm wondering if you can tell us from your personal experience, just give us a little picture of how you got each of your children started in TTRPGs. Like, did you start with the storytelling like you were mentioning or not? Did you use like pre-written things? Were there things you tried that didn't work? And were there things that they glued onto more quickly?
So I had never done the dungeon master role until I started our family game with my kids. So I definitely used some pre-written adventures at first. I think the first one we did was the heroes of Hesiod, the Monster Slayers adventure that's available on DM's Guild. I think it's free, but it's a very simple, like easy to learn how to be a dungeon master using that. I just prepped it pretty quickly and was like, well, we'll try this, and maybe they're into it, maybe they're not. And they were really into it. So we ran with that, and that turned into a larger homebrew campaign in the world of Etheria, which is where we play. I don't want it to sound like it was some kind of magic or luck, because it wasn't. But really, I just introduced some kind of like simpler D&D. Like at first, it was mostly quick combat kind of scenarios. And then we kind of added in a little bit more puzzles and a little bit more riddles and a little bit more role playing and some more choices that you could make and different ways you could interact. And I really just followed mostly my daughter. She's 4 now. She was 3 when we started. I mostly followed her lead. The things that she was interested in, we just did more of that. The things that she was kind of like, this is boring, we just didn't do that anymore. Most of it she was interested in. There weren't a whole lot of things that she was not into. My son is almost 2, so he doesn't actually play as a player character yet. He's my assistant. He rolls the dice for the bad guys and the NPCs, and he just loves to be a part of it and like get his hands on the little click clack math rocks, right? So I'm thinking within the next year, he turns 2 this month. I'm thinking over the next year, as he's like increasing his verbal skills and able to talk to us more about what he would want to do in the game, we'll incorporate him in as an actual player character.
So maybe I'm wondering for folks who are listening that maybe want to get started with their young children, homebrew might feel a little overwhelming. If they were going to try to start with a pre-written campaign, what advice would you give them as far as like what to look for in a campaign? How can you tell if it's going to be kid friendly or not? And then how can you adapt the gameplay once you have it in your hands to make it better suit the kids' experience?
I usually refer people over to staff at what is it, TTRPGkids.com or .org. She's like an excellent resource. Her website has all kinds of reviews on all kinds of tabletop role-playing games for kids. Me personally, I love Hero Kids, Amazing Tales, Starport. There's like some really excellent games that you can buy for not very much money that are actually geared towards kids. But I mean, I think what you're looking for is quick, exciting. If you can incorporate characters that they already know and are interested in, like unicorns or Elsa or Bluey, then like even better, right? And then you guys put out some really good, like quick one-shots that I'm sure you're promoting as well, but I think that's a really great place to start too. I haven't played yet. I'm going to, but I think just like starting small with those kind of like fast-paced adventures tends to work really well for elementary age kids and younger.
Yeah, with my kids, to build upon that, I started with just storytelling with my older daughter, and I would set the scene and have her come up with a character. I call it a journey story. Then I would introduce a problem to her just verbally, and then she would tell me how she wanted to solve it, and then I would tell her what happened and kind of keep going back and forth. And then slowly we would introduce dice, and I would just have her roll a d20. And if it was 10 or higher, then she was successful. If it was lower, she wasn't. We didn't do modifiers or anything. And then, we started to add more combat, and so we started to add a d6 for damage, and so like we've just like really little by little introduced each piece. And that's really how our what you were mentioning earlier, the 15-minute D&D sets that we're producing now on DM's Guild, that's really how that started, was just wanting to give an entry point. There are a lot of great resources out there for kids, like more and more, which is awesome to see. That they're designed specifically for kids or families to play together. But getting started, getting over that first hurdle can feel really overwhelming. So we really wanted to create an easy entry point. So our first set was just the D20 and the D6. The second set, which is coming out soon, my daughters are super into mermaids right now. So the whole thing is like an underwater adventure, basically, because my kids wanted to play mermaids in D&D. So we introduced a little bit more, like some support spells or actions. And then the set that I'm working out right now is going to introduce the kind of another piece of the mechanics. So as they keep going, they'll get into it. So that's worked really well for our family to just keep it super basic in the beginning, and then when it seems like they're ready to add a new piece of traditional D&D or TTRPGs, then we do so.
I love that. And I think in my mind, that's what I'm doing too, is I'm like starting with the small mechanics, and then I keep like adding a little, like piece by piece, I add a little bit more. And in theory, the goal state is that eventually we'll be playing like full D&D 5th edition, right?
Yeah.
But I'm just going to keep adding it like little by little as we go.
The other main thing that I do differently with kids than I do with adults is that, well, in a similar way, I would treat it to brand new adults to D&D. Like, make sure that it's a positive experience and that they have fun and that they feel successful. Like, I make things easier, right? I don't have, like, I know you've shared before, there's no player deaths. There's, everything tends to be easier or at least doable. If they fail a roll, I let them try a different way, to just make it a positive, happy experience for everybody.
Yeah, we end up having a lot of like tokens that are given or found in loot for like re-rolls. We have re-roll tokens.
Nice.
I love that.
You rolled a 2 or something and you're like, oh man, I'm so sad that didn't work. It's like, oh, you could use one of your re-roll tokens.
Perfect. That's a
they
great
just show
idea.
up everywhere. It's like every chest you open, here's 3 more re-roll tokens. I just hand them out like candy on Halloween.
That's brilliant. That's so brilliant.
Yeah. That's great. So I have one more community question. This one was submitted by Monica G. Wen on Instagram, and it is, how do you help soften blows when things don't go their way?
Yeah, so I definitely build in some opportunities for things to not go so horrible, right? So I have the reroll token system. I also have some really convenient like healing systems. Like if the party is doing very poorly in a fight, there's often this magical unicorn that will appear and kiss them, and that restores them to full health.
That is the sweetest thing.
Brilliant.
It's a lot of little ways to make it go not so awful as it might go in a traditional D&D game. But ultimately, like sometimes there are moments of like frustration, and we've even had a few meltdowns because that happens. And we are very much in the developmental stage of working on emotional self-regulation, and we are not at the end goal there, right? I mean, my kids are almost 2 and 4.5. So if you have kids that age, we take a lot of breaks when we play. I'm really open to taking breaks. If we're getting frustrated or tired or distracted, we step away. And I actually find that that's a really great moment when they get frustrated with how the game is going to kind of like, okay, pause the game, let's step out and let's have sort of a teaching moment around, that was really disappointing for you. You're really frustrated because you were so excited for your character to hit the giant spider and then she missed. And, kind of talk through and coach through that emotion of frustration. I think like that's a great way to teach an important life skill and some resilience there.
I agree. It's important to still give them opportunities to be frustrated and to fail and to help them work through that.
Yeah, one of the rules that we have at our table is it's a game, so it's supposed to be fun, and when it stops being fun, we can stop playing the game. And that's proved really helpful for us too when we have those meltdowns, because I feel like sometimes, especially for some players who might be coming from a more traditional D&D setting, the frustration is often a part of just seen as being a part of being at the table. And there's this sort of, we just want to translate the adult experience one-to-one for kids, and you can't really do that, right? You have to scaffold it in a different way. And I what I really appreciate about what you're doing, Nicole, is you're modeling good behavior that isn't just for the game, right? I mean, we've talked about that on the podcast before, that some of the lessons that we're learning in the game, they're, are for universal experiences. So I'm curious, like, have you started to see an effect on how your daughter is approaching the world outside the game with using some of the tools that you're teaching her inside?
Yeah, I definitely see her replicating some of that. And she's naturally very confident in general. But
Right?
I think that the kind of like creativity and imagination that she brings to interactions with other people outside of the game has improved since we started playing. We've been playing with her for about a year now.
That's perfect. What parent doesn't want that outcome, right?
Right. I know.
Yeah.
It's like you're just playing this game that's super fun, but like accidentally, there's all these really important things that the kids are picking up on and learning that they could use outside of the table.
Well, do you have any plugs or projects you're working on right now? And where can folks find you online?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I do have a big project that's in the works right now. I'm in the process of writing and getting published a children's storybook, like a picture book that parents could read to their kids before bed,
Oh, yeah.
and an actual tabletop role playing game that uses my mechanics that I've made up and my homebrew world. So the book and the game are both set in Etheria, the homebrew world that I created for our family campaign. And the book follows the adventures of two young heroes, Britt and Talon, as they start their training as heroes and go on an epic quest and, develop more of their own courage and their own personality along the way. My dream really with this project is that parents can start reading this book to their kids as infants, really, read it before bed. And it serves as kind of an introduction to that D&D tabletop role playing world. And then as they get older, 3, 4, 5, whenever, they already have the familiarity with the world of Etheria and the characters, and that transitions right into the game. And they can play the game in this world that they're already familiar with. That's the dream there. And I'm really excited to see it actually come into a physical product. And I'll certainly be doing a lot of promoting that here in the next year or so as that project comes to fruition.
That is so cool. I love it.
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at Dungeon Master Moms. That's where I'm the most active. I'm also on Facebook as Game Master Moms, and my company and my website are gamemastermoms.com. The Instagram is a great place to follow for tips, follow along to our family campaign. I'll share resources of things that you can use at your table with your kids. Those are the best ways to keep up with me online.
Nicole, as a close to this whole conversation, what is the best moment that you have had, and how do you hope other parents how do you hope that for them to replicate it?
So many good moments to choose from, but I think the best moment is just when I plan out something in the game and I see my kids' eyes just light up and they get so excited about playing. Just sharing that magical moment with them, that's everything. That's like goals as a parent, to be able to share those moments of wonder at the table with my kids.
Thanks for listening to Area of Effect. Be a part of the ongoing conversation. Follow us on Instagram at the Kids Table D&D, where you can DM us questions that might appear on a future show. And check out the Kids Table D&D on YouTube to see how we include kids and teens at the table. Brought to you by the Kids Table, because when kids are at the table, everyone wins.